Okay, so you're here, and I bet you want to get right to the good stuff right, like all that useful information without having to wade through all the extra stuff that's out there.
Exactly.
We're going to try to cut to the chase for you today. It's like taking the express lane,
Yeah.
to knowledge.
Exactly.
And we're going to do that with 2 movement practices that are surprisingly effective. And they're really accessible to just about anybody.
Yes.
Interval walking and slow jogging.
Yeah,
So we went through a bunch of research to bring this to you.
absolutely.
We really dove deep into a couple of videos from the Syndicate Fit Over 40 YouTube channel
Yeah.
to pull out what's really important.
Yeah.
We're talking about the stuff that can actually make a difference for you and how you live your life and how you feel. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. Trying to cut through all the noise and all the different options. And,
Right.
you can go down so many rabbit holes with fitness, but to try to distill it down to like,
Yeah.
what does the science say? What is going to be effective and how can you actually implement it in your life?
Exactly. And that's our mission today.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with interval walking. Now, this isn't some kind of like fancy fitness trend. It's not something that you have to buy special equipment for or join a special gym.
Yes.
It's basic.
Yes.
It's free.
Free.
Anybody can do it. Doesn't matter how fit you are.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what kind of shape you're in right now.
Exactly.
But you should not be fooled by the simplicity of it because the potential benefits of interval walking are huge.
Yes, they are.
We're talking about improvements in things like high blood pressure,
Right.
better blood sugar management if you're dealing with diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
It can actually be really good for cardiac rehabilitation.
Yep.
It can boost your mood.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, it can help you sleep better.
Absolutely.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, and what I find really fascinating about this is, it's something that's so straightforward.
Right.
Anybody can do it, like we were saying. But where did it actually come from?
Oh, yeah. So this was developed in Japan
Oh, wow.
by professors Noz Hiroshi and Masuki Shizu
Wow.
at Shinshu University.
Okay.
And what's really cool is it seems so gentle.
Right.
But the idea behind it is that you're going from periods of higher intensity to lower intensity and back and forth.
Right.
And that's actually a fundamental principle that's
Yeah.
used in athletic training.
Really? Okay.
We've all heard of tabata.
Sure.
Same kind of idea. You're going from
Sure.
high to low intensity.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay.
Yeah. So it's using these tried and true principles,
Wow.
but in a really accessible way.
Okay, so it's not just like some made-up thing. Like, they actually did research on this.
Yeah. So they did a ton of research at Shinshu University. They actually looked at over 10,000 participants,
What?
which is amazing.
That is amazing.
And their findings were all really consistent with a pilot study that they did originally with 246 people.
So in the pilot study, what they did is they looked at 3 different groups. They had a group of people that didn't do any exercise.
Okay.
They had a group of people that were aiming for the 10,000 steps a day.
Right.
And then they had the group that was doing the interval walking.
Gotcha.
And they found that the interval walking group had some pretty amazing results after just 5 months,
Great.
especially compared to the group that was just getting the 10,000 steps.
Okay, so what were the results?
Yeah, so they had 4 times greater of a drop in their systolic blood pressure.
Okay, so for people who aren't familiar with what systolic blood pressure is, remind us.
Yeah, so your systolic blood pressure is the top number
Okay.
when you get your blood pressure measured.
Hmm.
And that's the pressure in your arteries when your heart beats.
Okay.
So they had a 4 times greater drop in their systolic blood pressure, an average of 7 millimeters of mercury,
Wow. Okay.
which is significant. Their diastolic blood pressure also decreased, but it decreased 2.5 times more than the 10,000 steps group.
So diastolic blood pressure is the bottom number.
Correct, yeah.
That's the pressure when your heart's at rest between beats.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that was a drop of 3 millimeters of mercury.
Okay, so if you think about this for a second, those kinds of changes in blood pressure in just 5 months could theoretically mean a 40% reduction in your risk of stroke over the next 5 years.
Yeah,
So that's huge. I mean, if you're concerned at all about your cardiovascular health,
absolutely.
that's pretty amazing.
And it's not just the physical benefits either.
Oh, really?
The interval walking group had a 50% reduction in their depression index.
Wow.
And they reported better sleep quality.
That's incredible.
And in addition to those, they also saw a 12% greater increase in their hamstring strength
Oh, wow.
and a 10% larger improvement in their peak oxygen uptake, which is also called VO2 max.
Okay.
And that's just a measure of your cardiorespiratory fitness. So lots of benefits across the board.
So it sounds like even though getting your 10,000 steps a day is good for you,
Mm-hmm.
it may not be enough of a challenge to get these huge benefits that they were seeing in the interval walking group.
Right. It seems like those little bursts of higher intensity
Yeah.
are the key to unlocking
But
those.
getting you out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do you do it?
Okay, so let's break down the protocol from Shinshu University.
Okay.
So you can try it out yourself.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So first you start with 3 minutes of stretching.
Okay.
And there are lots of different stretches you can do, but if you're watching the video, there's a link in the description of the video
Okay.
to a sample stretching routine.
Okay. Cool.
So you do 3 minutes of stretching, and then you're going to walk at an easy pace
Okay.
for 3 minutes,
Okay.
and then you're going to increase your speed and walk faster for 3 minutes.
Okay.
And when you're walking faster, you want to take slightly bigger steps.
Okay.
And you might want to focus on a heel strike if that feels natural for you.
Okay.
Some people don't naturally heel strike, so just walk how you normally walk.
Okay.
But you should feel yourself getting slightly out of breath.
Slightly out of breath.
Slightly. That's the key word there.
Okay.
You're not sprinting.
Gotcha.
You're not running. But you are increasing your effort.
Okay.
So you should be able to tell that you're working a little bit harder.
Right.
You could still hold a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
but you know you're working.
Gotcha.
And then after that 3 minutes, you're going to go back to your easy walking pace for 3 minutes.
Got it.
And you're going to repeat that cycle.
Okay.
3 minutes easy, 3 minutes faster
Mm-hmm.
for a total of 5 sets,
Okay.
which brings it to about 30 minutes.
Okay, cool. So nice manageable amount of time
Yeah.
to get in a good workout.
And what's really interesting is that this protocol was actually adapted from training methods
Oh, wow.
that are used by elite athletes. But it's so accessible
Wow.
that they recommend it even for people in their 80s.
Wow, okay.
And they actually showed on NHK World in Japan
All right.
older adults doing this
Wow.
and using it in cardiac rehab. So
Right,
people recovering from heart attacks and things like that are using this method.
Wow.
And what's really cool is that they can do it at home with wearable devices
Oh, cool.
to track their progress.
Oh, okay. That's really neat.
Yeah, so highly accessible and effective.
Yeah. And this is something that stood out to me when we were looking at the research for this.
Mm-hmm.
In this study, they actually found a financial benefit to interval walking.
Yeah, they did.
So the interval walking group had a 20% reduction in healthcare expenses over the 5 months.
Which is huge when you think about the big picture.
Huge. Yeah. If you're worried about healthcare costs and,
Absolutely.
just managing your own finances,
Yeah,
that's huge.
big impact.
Okay. So to get those benefits we were talking about, the participants were doing this 30-minute interval walking routine 4 days a week.
4 days a week.
And that was middle-aged and older adults.
Yes,
So it's a realistic commitment
very realistic.
for a lot of people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I think is so interesting is that Japan is really integrating this into their healthcare system.
Oh, wow.
So much so that there's a pilot program at Shinshu University
All right.
where they're giving basic interval walking instructions along with diabetes prescriptions at pharmacies.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and they even showed in the video a woman with diabetes who wasn't athletic at all,
Oh, wow.
and she found it really easy to do and super beneficial.
That's great.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I think it's really interesting to contrast that with
Yeah.
how we do things in America.
Yeah.
We have much higher rates of chronic illness here.
Right.
Prescription drug usage is way higher.
Mm-hmm.
And Japan's taking a much more proactive,
Yeah.
lifestyle-focused approach to health, which includes things like interval walking.
Right.
And also things like community-based support for people with dementia.
Oh, wow.
So it
Good
really
stuff.
makes you think about how we can do things differently.
Yeah. Do you think we should be giving exercise recommendations like with prescriptions?
I think it's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Instead of just giving people medication,
Right.
what if we gave them something that they could do to actually help improve their health
Right.
naturally?
Right. I think it's a great idea. Okay.
Yeah.
So even if you think you're like super healthy right now,
Right.
interval walking is a really valuable tool to have in your back pocket.
Yeah, absolutely.
For if you get sick, if you have an injury, or maybe you're going through a period of time where you just don't have a lot of energy,
Yeah,
it's a really good way to just get back on your feet.
absolutely.
Okay, so that was interval walking.
Yes.
Now let's talk about slow jogging. Okay, so this is a concept that really pushes back against all that conventional wisdom that we've been taught about exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Like that it has to be strenuous and hard, and you have to sweat and be sore in order to be effective.
Right. You have to feel the burn.
Yeah, no pain, no gain.
Right.
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 The evidence actually shows that light exercise like slow jogging can be so beneficial.
Yeah.
And you might even avoid some of the risks that come with intense workouts.
Yeah. And, some of the research even shows that there might be some mortality risks with strenuous exercise.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So slow jogging is all about light exercise for a long and healthy life.
Okay.
And it's for everyone.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if you've never jogged before or if you're a seasoned runner.
Okay.
Anyone can do this.
And what are the benefits of slow jogging?
Yeah, so some of the benefits are preventing heart disease. It can also be really effective for managing things like hypertension,
Okay.
hyperlipidemia, which is high cholesterol,
Gotcha.
type 2 diabetes, and it can also be used for cardiac rehab.
Okay, cool. So kind of similar to
Yeah, very similar benefits.
the benefits of
Interval walking and
yeah,
slow jogging, just like interval walking comes from Japan.
it does.
Who knew? Professor Hiroaki Tanaka from Fukuoka University is credited with creating it.
Yep.
That's cool. It's so interesting to me that these low-intensity methods come from Japan, because we're so focused on high-intensity interval training here.
Right.
Constantly pushing our bodies to the limit.
Yeah.
I wonder what the long-term effects are going to be from all this intense exercise that everyone's doing these days.
Yeah, and speaking of that,
Yeah.
the video mentioned a 2015 study by Peter Schnorr, and this study found that light casual joggers actually had lower mortality rates than the people that were jogging more vigorously.
So you're telling me slower is better?
Yeah, it seems like it might be in this case.
No pain, no gain.
Right. That's what we've always been taught, but maybe it's wrong.
Maybe.
Wow.
And it also ties in with the DSY philosophy.
That's why.
Yeah. Don't strain yourself.
Okay.
And so we'll do a whole episode on that another time.
Yeah, we should.
But it's basically all about finding a more sustainable, enjoyable way to move your body. So it's about consistency over intensity.
Okay.
And slow jogging is a perfect example.
I think a lot of people are going to be curious about the fat-burning aspect of slow jogging.
Yeah. So because it's lower intensity, you actually burn a higher percentage of fat when you're exercising.
Okay.
So you're generally going to be working at about 50 to 70% of your max heart rate when you're slow jogging.
Okay.
Which is a good zone for burning fat.
Okay.
And it might surprise you to know that you can actually burn up to twice as many calories slow jogging
as walking. Probably.
For the same distance. So the example that they gave was if you're a 200-pound person and you slow jog for 2.5 miles, you might burn about 300 calories, which is about the same as walking 4 miles.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's because you're engaging bigger muscle groups when you're jogging.
Oh, okay.
So things like your quadriceps, your psoas, your glutes are working harder when you're jogging than when you're walking.
Gotcha.
So you're burning more calories.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I think another thing that's often overlooked is the fact that slow jogging can actually help you develop better running form.
Absolutely.
Because when you're not worried about speed, you have the time and awareness to really pay attention to your technique.
Yeah.
And that can make you more efficient.
Yes.
And help prevent injuries in the long run.
Absolutely.
The video even mentioned that the American Air Force has started using slow jogging in their training to try to reduce the number of running-related injuries.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then because slow jogging is lower impact, you're putting less stress on your joints and your muscles.
Right.
Which, again, can help prevent injury.
Absolutely.
And the host of the video that we were looking at even shared a personal anecdote about having some knee issues.
Yeah.
And how he was able to avoid surgery by doing things like slow jogging.
Wow.
Which I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah.
So, okay, what does proper slow jogging technique look like?
Yeah, so one of the key things is that you want to be landing on the ball of your foot.
Okay.
Or your midfoot.
Okay.
Instead of striking with your heel.
Okay.
Because heel striking can send a lot of shock up through your knees.
Ouch.
And it's often recommended that you wear minimalist shoes that have a flat sole.
Okay.
So you can really feel the ground.
Okay.
And encourage a more natural foot strike.
Gotcha.
And Professor Tanaka, who created this method, recommends that you should be able to carry on a conversation while you're jogging.
So like what we're doing right now.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
So you shouldn't be so out of breath that you can't talk.
Okay.
And another way to gauge your intensity is by using the Borg scale of perceived exertion.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
So remind me what that is.
Yeah, so it's a scale from 6 to 20, and you basically rate how hard you feel like you're working.
Okay.
And for slow jogging, you want to be somewhere around a 10 to 12.
Okay.
Which corresponds to that lower heart rate zone.
Gotcha.
That we were talking about.
Okay.
And it's also really important to keep good posture.
Okay.
So you want to keep your back straight, your chin slightly up, and you want to be looking ahead.
Okay.
And the movement itself, you don't want to be pushing off strongly with your feet.
Okay.
You kind of want to think about it as a series of small, gentle bounces.
Gotcha.
Almost like you're jumping,
okay,
but just tiny little jumps.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you're just starting out, a good way to ease into it is to alternate between 1 minute of slow jogging and 30 seconds of walking.
Gotcha.
And then as you get more fit, you can gradually increase those jogging intervals.
Okay, cool.
Oh.
It's interesting that Professor Tanaka has an evolutionary perspective on why this is so good for us.
Yeah, he actually thinks that humans are designed for this type of light running.
Really?
Yeah, and it's because it engages our slow twitch muscle fibers, which are really good for endurance.
Okay.
And they don't fatigue as easily.
Okay, so we're like built to run slowly.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so it's not weird to do it?
No, not at all.
Okay, cool. So the video does mention that it can sometimes be a little discouraging if you're out there slow jogging and people are walking past you.
Yeah.
Or you get some weird looks from faster runners.
Right.
But you just have to remember what your goals are.
Absolutely.
You know, and all the benefits that we've been talking about.
Exactly.
So it doesn't really matter how fast you're going.
Yeah, you're still getting a great workout.
Yeah, and you're helping to prevent all those chronic diseases.
Yeah.
And maybe even rehab from some of those conditions if you're already dealing with them.
Exactly.
Now, you did say that there's a word of caution here.
Yeah, so even though it's low impact,
Okay.
you can still get repetitive stress injuries from slow jogging.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's always a good idea to mix things up
Okay.
and do some cross training.
Uh-huh.
So things like walking, swimming, cycling are all great options.
Okay.
Just to give your body a break from the repetitive motion.
Right. Okay. So there you have it, folks. We dove deep into interval walking and slow jogging.
We did.
What do you think?
Yeah, 2 really accessible methods for improving your health.
And they're backed by science.
Yes.
You don't need a gym membership.
Nope.
You don't need any special equipment.
No.
You can pretty much do them anywhere.
Exactly.
So are you going to give one of these a try or both of them?
Yeah, I think it just depends on what your needs are, your preferences, your lifestyle.
Right.
Maybe one of them resonates more with you, or maybe you want to combine the 2.
Right.
But either way, they both have so many potential benefits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, from blood pressure regulation to mood enhancement. I mean, the list goes on and on.
It does.
So this leads me to a final thought for all of you.
Okay.
We live in a world that values complexity. We're always trying to find like the hardest workout or the most complicated solution.
Yeah.
But what if these really simple movement practices that are backed by science?
Right.
What if these are the key to better health and well-being?
What if less is more?
What if less is more? That's a good question. Something to think about.
Yeah, something to ponder.
Thank you.
Yeah.